A teen murdered yesterday in Oxon Hill was trying to save his mother. Good evening. This is CTV News. I'm Gina Barty.
And I'm Sonia Srivastava. Thank you for joining us this evening. Just days after the state's attorney's office held a domestic violence summit, an Oxon Hill community is rocked by an incident that took the life of a 9th grader and wounded another teen. Our Brian Scott is in Apple Harbor with more.
The suspect is being held on a no bond status. He is 48-year-old Sean Crawford, and he could spend the rest of his life behind bars.
These cases make us sick. We are absolutely sick over this 14-year-old who died. You know, these cases don't have to happen.
Take another look at the suspect. Investigators say he's the man who killed a 14-year-old boy by thrusting a knife into his chest and stabbing another teen in the shoulder.
We just spent a weekend talking about family violence. This is very serious.
The incident happened yesterday morning at an Oxon Hill apartment. Police say Crawford was living with his girlfriend, Lakeisha Jennings, and her 2 sons, 14-year-old Kayshawn Mason and 18-year-old Nathaniel DeBerry. Neighbors say Crawford and Jenkins had been arguing through Sunday night.
But we know that it was overheard by neighbors, that there was a very loud commotion, that people responded to it, and that, of course, the police were called. And when they responded, in all likelihood, we believe that the 14-year-old was probably already deceased.
Investigators say Crawford grabbed a kitchen knife and barricaded himself in a bedroom with Jenkins. Police say the boys forced their way in, and that's when Crawford allegedly lashed out, then fled the apartment.
And they felt compelled to protect their mothers, and one gave his life trying to spare his mother in his own house.
The dead teenager attended Potomac High School, where today grief counselors and psychologists were on hand to speak with students.
And so it appears to us, from what we can tell so far, he obviously does have a history of domestic violence.
Crawford has a bond hearing scheduled for tomorrow, and he could at some point face additional charges. At the courthouse, Byron Scott, CTV News.
Now, the Prince George's County Council is holding a town hall meeting on domestic violence tonight at Suitland High School at 7 p.m. Meantime, an Oxon Hill man learns his fate after pleading guilty to murdering his wife and mother-in-law in their home. 55-year-old Malcolm Thomas will spend the next 50 years behind bars. Officials say in August of 2014, the victim's daughter called 911 after discovering her mother and grandmother's bodies. Prosecutors say it was a domestic dispute that turned physical. Thomas fled to Southern Virginia after the homicides, where he was later arrested.
You may remember back in August, Governor Larry Hogan issued an executive order establishing a bipartisan board to examine Maryland's highly criticized process for drawing district lines. With the deadline to submit their findings to state leaders just weeks away, members met today in Annapolis. Rochelle Metzger is there with more.
The Maryland Redistricting Reform Commission has listened to voters and legislators vent about the state's congressional and legislative districts, some which have been called the most gerrymandered in the country. Today, members say they know the process is broken, and listening to testimony from across the state, one thing is clear: reform is needed. Now it's up to the commission to restore common sense and consistency to that process.
No part of government should draw its own districts.
Gerrymandering, the drawing of political boundaries to give the party in power a numeric advantage over an opposing party. The result is often misshaped and fragmented election districts.
They have to be compact. They have to be contiguous. They can't be drawn for clear partisan gain.
Governor Larry Hogan issued an executive order creating a bipartisan commission to examine the state's redistricting process with the goal of establishing an independent authority.
Having an independent commission is one of the cleanest ways to get some of the politics out of the process.
Members say they'll consider voter and legislator input and look to reform models recently implemented in other states to come up with their recommendations.
These public hearings showed a clear demand for change. At every single public hearing, the frustration was palpable. You could tell that people feel disenfranchised, they feel cut out of their own democracy. That's what redistricting reform is about.
A final report is due to the governor, Senate President, and Speaker of the House by November 3rd, which gives the commission about 2 weeks to get their final recommendations together. Now, there was some concern today by members that they might not be able to meet that deadline and the possibility of asking for an extension. For now, the next meeting is set for next Tuesday, October 27th. In Annapolis, Rochelle Metzger, CTV News.
Ultimately, the commission is tasked with developing a recommendation for a constitutional amendment that would be submitted to the General Assembly for consideration next year. Meantime, Montgomery County election officials reversed course, restoring two early voting sites dropped last month by its majority Republican board. The plan would have closed centers in Democrat-heavy Bethesda and Burtonsville and moved them to less populated but more GOP-friendly communities. The State Board of Elections failed to approve the changes and instead asked county officials to craft a new proposal. On Monday, the local board agreed to compromise proposals that urges the General Assembly to give Montgomery an additional early voting site to be located in Potomac.
Well, the city of Baltimore has a new police commissioner. Kevin Davis was confirmed by the city council last night, but not without protests. Demonstrators upset with police. Community relations in Baltimore disrupted last night's meeting. Davis, a former deputy chief in Prince George's, served as interim commissioner following the ouster of former chief Anthony Batts. And you are watching CTV News. I'm Sonia Shrivastava.
And I'm Gina Barti. Up next.